Hey guys, it's Dave with Big Rock Bend Reviews. Hope everybody's doing great today. Uh, while you're here, if you don't mind doing me a huge favor, hit that like and subscribe button real quick. Help me grow the channel and get these videos out to everybody I can. Um, I really do appreciate it. So today we are looking at the final thoughts on this handsome knife here, the Rake P128-SF. A mouthful of a name and a handful of a knife. This is not a small pocket knife. This thing is relatively large. It's 8.54 inches long when open, so definitely on the larger side. And you can see the handle's pretty large itself. The pocket clip here, very tight pocket clip. Really like the design on this knife. The pivot's super strong. All the fittings are super tight, well put together, well made knife. Very stylish too. It's just a really good looking knife. But the highlight on this is definitely the action and the blade. That snappy pivot action there when you pull that flipper tab open, man, it is super fidget friendly. I'll sit at my desk at the office and open and close this thing all day. And as you can see here, going to run through some basic cutting with the paper and cardboard, just so you can see after almost 2 weeks of fairly steady daily use, the edge is still super sharp, cutting very thin, fine lines off that paper. Really good edge, really strong shape and design on the blade. Even with this heavier shipping cardboard, it just glides right through there. Cut it at an angle, no problems, no issues. You can see the blade here still very clean. Um, the handle shape on this really cool, feels good in the hand, especially with that back spacer on there. Keeps from pinching the meat of your hand when you really grip tight on it. And again, the action is just really awesome on this knife. That flipper action, very slick, very quick, snappy action on it. So very cool. Now this knife is on Amazon, and when I was looking at it on Amazon, they had a video of a guy batoning his way through some firewood. So I decided to put that to the test and see if that was some magic marketing or if it actually could hold up to that use. I'll be honest, going into this, I was very hesitant to do this. I was worried it would damage the knife or loosen the fittings. But as you can see, I'm hammering it through. This is some limbs from an oak tree that fell in my backyard that I cut up last year for firewood. Um, so it's a very dense, hard wood. I mean, it's hammering right through there. It split that a lot easier and a lot more effectively than I was expecting. I will be honest, when I saw that video on the Amazon page, I just kind of assumed that was some magic marketing BS, but apparently not. I was pleasantly surprised, and you can see it actually cuts through it pretty well. And I split that half of a stick just to see. Now, I will say you have to start it back closer a little bit to the pivot than I was. The blade does tend to try to walk its way out as you're hammering through there, and I didn't really want to hammer too much right on the tip of the blade. I was worried that that thin section might be a little easier to bend or deform. So I backed it out a little bit and just split right down the middle. Um, and here I've got a piece of a little of a fragment of one of my larger firewood pieces, so it's a little denser wood, and still no issues. It just pops right through it, really easier than I was expecting. Um, you can see the disbelief there. I'm looking at the edge, just like, man, what is happening? Now, I will say this piece is much more dense. This is from kind of the core of the tree back towards the stump where the wood was really thick, really dense, hard wood. And it doesn't get quite through there as easily. I think that's more a reflection of just how dense that wood is versus the blade itself. So I didn't want to risk causing too much damage to the knife, and it just didn't feel safe trying to hammer my way through that. So I tried a few times. It definitely cut into it. Didn't put any damage or anything on the edge, but still, just for safety's sake, I kind of backed it out. Decided to try another stick of firewood here, and you can see there again, starts off great, but it does start to kind of slip its way out towards the tip. So I turned it over to knock the blade out so I could reset it, and I was very impressed. The lock stayed tight, no issues there. You can see here I'm kind of tapping that on the back side to pull the knife blade out, reset it in that initial split, and then just pops right through it. No issues, no problems. So I was pleasantly surprised by this. I was honestly expecting it to cause some issues, maybe loosen the pivot, loosen the hinge, but as you can see, no wiggle, no give. Uh, it didn't even really scratch the blade up that much or at all. There's some scuff marks on there, but that's more marks from the wood. Those are not actually scratches in the steel itself. So, yeah, very surprised with this. Very pleasantly surprised with how well it stood up to that heavy use, and very cool. Two thumbs up on the camping application as well. So, now that we worked on some firewood a little bit, I decided to come back in and just kind of run through some more slicing with this knife just to make sure that the edge really did stay intact through that. You can see those scuffs on the blade, so you know this is after the firewood experiment. And you can see it's cutting through there pretty well. But there was one spot that I noticed back towards the pivot where when the paper would get to that, it would catch a little bit and tear more than cut. At first, I was worried. I thought, maybe there was some sand or a little rock embedded in one of those firewood sticks or something that might have rolled the edge or caused a chip just enough to catch the paper and tear it instead of cutting it. But I tested the edge with my fingernail. I'm looking to see if I can feel a roll or anything, see a little chip in the edge, and it doesn't feel like there's any damage. And after I did that, it actually cut much cleaner. So I think what happened, there was one spot on the blade right back towards the pivot, about a third of the way up from the pivot, where there was some wood fiber that got stuck to the edge. And I think it was just enough that it was interfering with the cutting surface. So when it got to that point in the paper, it was tearing instead of cutting. So I took some of that heavy shipping cardboard and I ran it through that a few times just to give it something that was a little stiffer, a little harder on the edge to maybe clean those little wood fibers off. Um, and then I'm going to grab another sheet of that printer paper and just kind of double check that theory. And here we go. And yeah, you can see when I start slicing it through now, man, it just glides right through there, no issues. Just as easy and just as sharp as it was before hammering it through that firewood. So yeah, I think what was happening, that little bit of wood fiber was interfering with the cutting surface. It was not actually damage to the steel itself. And yeah, you can see it just glides right through there, cuts through no problem. So while this is a little larger and a little heavier than most of the knives I usually take on camping and hiking trips, it's definitely good to know that if you find yourself in that kind of situation and this is the only knife you have on hand, it can definitely stand up to that kind of use. I was not expecting that going into it. So kudos to Rake. That was not marketing magic. It was actually a real use case that this knife can get put through. Um, so yeah, just a few kind of final thoughts to wrap this all up. At $59.95, in my opinion, this knife is worth every single penny of that. You get a lot for your money. It's stylish. It looks good. The materials are super high quality. 14C28 in steel for the blade. Um, the frame lock is super tight. The pivot is super tight. The action is smooth and snappy every time. The blade is ridiculously sharp. Cuts pretty much anything you can throw at it. So just all around, this thing is super budget friendly, and in my opinion, honestly, it is worth every penny. So two big thumbs up for the Ruike P128, and thanks for stopping by, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.